at night time. I've tried to achieve a strong situation here and subdued snowy trees on either side. We've got the moon, of course, here. There was a lot of lifting out on this occasion because I did want that particular subdued type of light effect, instead of before in some of the other paintings where I want a very bright light effect. This time I said, well, I am going to paint over certain areas because I'm then going to lift them out, and that gives the snowy effect, although there's no white paint at all used again in that situation. That's the Victoria Monument, there, Queen Victoria Monument. And these stars, there's a few little stars, I don't know how well you can see them from the distance of where you're sitting, but those few little stars, I'll tell you a little trick for doing those. Once the paint is completely dry, take yourself a sharp knife, a Stanley knife, you know, carpet type Stanley knife, and just pick them out. So pick out the stars. One of the paintings that appeared in the paper to advertise this evening's event was a golf course. That is the one that was in the paper. I think they did a pretty good job of showing it. I'm grateful to the paper. They've supported me pretty well in terms of advertising things for me, letting people know what's going on. If I've had an exhibition somewhere or something. And this is Scotland, St Andrews golf course, a famous St Andrews golf course, where a lot of people say the golf started, but that's up for debate. And this is a famous Wilkin Bridge. I've made quite a feature of that, and the British Open is played there sometimes. You know, they go around the country to give different parts of the country a turn, like they do with the Open Golf Championships here. But I thought it's particularly appropriate to do that one because of the history of it, and also I've been able to merge together some of the landscaping and the buildings here at the same time. You got a couple of golfers just walking off. They took their shots, they've gone over the bridge, and they're just walking off now to finish playing the last hole. Now what I'm going to do is, at this stage, because I've gone through the English ones that I have, I'm going to leave that aircraft up, which is a P-38, and I'm just going to see if there's any questions so far about some of the paintings I've shown or some of the techniques I've talked about so far. Anything that anyone wishes to ask? Yeah?
That one behind you,
Yeah.
what kind of paper do you use? And do you cold press or hot press? Or?
Okay. What I prefer to use is a rough paper, and it's 300 pound weight. And the paper that I like the most is called Arches or Arches, the French paper, A-R-C-H-E-S. It's Arches Aquarelle. The reason why I like to use that paper is that it can take a lot of washes. Alright, it's quite robust. You don't have to stretch it beforehand as well. Now if you go to the 140 pounds, the lower weight, then you do actually have to put gum around it, soak it, and let it dry out so that it stretches and becomes like a tight drum. If you don't do that, then what will happen is it will cockle, and then you'll get little ponds of water here and there, and the pigments of the paint starting to settle in little groups, and that's frustrating. Yeah. So the lower weight papers, you do have to stretch them, but this paper, the 300 pound paper, no, and that's a beauty of it. That's a B-17 bomber going over Norfolk. I've painted quite a few of aircraft over the years, literally hundreds of aircraft, either to directly sell or as commissions for people. In fact, most recent sale was for a lieutenant colonel who's been made the commander of the largest F-16 squadron in the country in Phoenix, Arizona. So that was quite nice to be able to be the person to give him that painting on his promotion, you know. Any other questions about England and technique and things of that nature?
Do you work in other mediums or?
Yes, I do occasionally, just for a change, because you know,
Yeah.
when you're doing the same thing over and over.
What are some other things that you like?
What I sometimes do is oils. This one is watercolor. It's
I like that.
cypress trees.
Yes.
It's quite vibrant. If you feel it's like impasto, almost on there. Some of it is laid down with knife, some of it with brush, some of it with my fingers, and so forth. Do take longer, of course, because of the drying process. I only use a substitute for turpentine to thin the paint. It's very rare that I'll put oil as well as the oil that's in the pigment. And I don't tend to use the dryers either. I find that the turpentine substitute is an odourless one that I use, like the Bob Ross one type you can get easily. I find that dries the paint out sufficiently for me and gets enough flow on it. And these are egrets flying across the watercolor river there. Well, you'll see when we talk about the Florida section that we go down the watercolor on the boats there as often as we can from the reserve. We get tons of photographs, and my wife is a photographer. She loves it every time we go down there, and she's got lots of good photographs in that location. And the other thing I sometimes do is acrylics, which is watercolor again, but of course it's opaque instead of transparent watercolor. Egrets again, snow egrets. This was just south of Naples, Venice Beach area. They have a jetty, all these rocks that they put there, and it attracts all the birds and fish. And so we were in that location when I was at the Naples Festival, Art Festival, and so we took the opportunity to do lots of photography, and then I'll paint that back home. What I'd also do sometimes is pastels, and I would do. I don't really do portraits, but sometimes I'll do figures like Degas ballet dancers and things like that.
Do you sketch on your canvas before you start painting, or do you just paint?
Right. Well, with watercolors, yes, I'll definitely pencil sketch first.
Yeah.
And with the acrylics, I do pencil sketch. With the oils, I'll block in the basic outline of what I want to paint with a thinned down one of the colours, a grey colour, a slightly brown colour, etc. Just block it in and then go from there, because it's very difficult to see. You can do it sometimes, but it's difficult to see outlines when you're using the oils. If I was doing pastels, I would tend to sometimes use a chalk pencil to do an outline, and then continue thereon with the soft pastels. So I do occasionally, as I say, go to other media such as those that I've talked about, but 90% of the time I'll be doing transparent watercolours. So that's my first love. Yes.
Do you paint in your studio some, or you mostly paint outside?
These days I very much paint at home in my studio. As I said, the mosquitoes really love me, and it's because of the heat and so forth. It's hard with transparent watercolours. I find they dry up really quickly in that atmosphere. Of course, you can get away with the acrylics much more easily painting outside, or the oils. But here, yes, I paint much less outside compared to I used to in England. When we start our travels again next year, I'll be doing a lot more travelling again. Then I'll take my easel with me and so forth, and whilst Marilyn's taking her photographs, I'll be sitting there painting. Okay, do I have some more questions?
In the studio, is there a rule of thumb you might use for lighting, for judging your lighting?
Right, well, the best lighting, of course, is a north-facing window. Thankfully, I do have one, but I think there should be no hard and fast rules. Most artists would say you really should just use natural lighting, nothing but natural lighting. But I've read plenty of books from various artists over the year that say, no, I just use lighting from electricity and different bulbs and so forth. I use a strip light, or I use as clear as possible round bulb and on a lamp like that, you know. So even John Pike, you know, famous John Pike, he did have a north-facing window in his studio, and he'd use that light, but he'd still have a light system that he set up. He'd paint at night and so forth, you know. So the most artists would say, ideally, yes, north-facing window and use natural light, but plenty of time you can get by if you know what you're doing. One of the possible disadvantages of using the unnatural light is that you might end up with a much stronger painting. That's the way it tends to go. You don't seem to end up with a weaker painting, you end up with a much stronger painting. But once you get used to your materials and how to mix and so forth, you find that you can tend to overcome that. Okay, do I have any more questions before we go on to the next stage? Okay.